You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Leticia Lizcano, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
You got a big smile this morning. I think it's because I'm here.
It's good to be here.
I didn't even tell Nina we were coming, so technically this is behind her back.
Oh.
No, she knows. She's still in bed, though. Well, one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to have you on because, for one, I love you. And
Thank
two,
you. I love you too.
I think you got a pretty cool story. So I met you through Nina, working, I guess, at Evers. Mm-hmm. And Nina I don't even really know what Nina does. I know she's a special needs teacher, but they have titles, right? You were in charge of the ALE unit, correct?
No, I was a special ed coordinator for Evers Elementary. That was my last position with Northside School District.
Let's pull that closer to you. And maybe come this way a little bit. The closer you are, the clearer it is. But go ahead.
Okay. So I was a special ed coordinator at Evers Elementary my last 6 years at Northside.
Okay.
And so we oversee the special ed department. And so special ed is very diverse. And so one of the classes is called ALE, Applied Learning Environment. That's what Nina teaches.
Applied learning? Okay.
And basically what that is, it's functional academics. We teach them life skills, daily living, how to be independent communication. It's kids that have more moderate to severe intellectual disabilities. And that was actually my first job. My first 4 years of teaching, I taught ALE.
Oh, really?
But then we have like behavior units, we have early childhood units. And then our goal is to service the majority of the people who are able to be successful in the mainstream setting in general ed classrooms.
Okay.
So we have special ed teachers in general ed classrooms as well. And I kind of oversaw the program. So that's where I met Nina because I was the coordinator in the program where she was working.
Oh, okay. So then I guess the goal is to have some of these kids spend some time in the special or the ALE class and then try and spend some time in general ed?
Yes, our goal is to have them in the least restrictive environment. So even if they're only able to participate during non-curricular, like academic curricular activities, maybe they can go to art with a general ed class. They can go to PE with a general ed class.
Oh.
So the most time that they can spend with typically developing peers so that they can have appropriate role models, the better.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're still working on self-regulating, and so maybe they're not ready because they might distract the other classes, or they might, their behavior might impede the others' learning or things like that. But when we feel that they're ready, the data's showing like, yes, they're ready to go out into a more stimulating environment, we try to push them out as much as possible.
Okay.
And so Nina was amazing at what she did. And
I'm going to have to cut that out, Letty.
I kind of gravitated to her until she did become one of my closest friends there. Because I just admired her so much for everything that she did.
You know what? I've had this conversation with people before, and I hate that I'm going to do it again. But being married to Nina it takes a real strong, handsome, with it man to be married to her.
Well, her work ethic is beyond the norm, so I understand why.
Well, what's funny is like she does really well at work, and I think we were just talking to somebody recently. Maybe it was even last night at dinner. I can't remember, but it wasn't like Nina set out to become a special needs teacher. She's really good. But it wasn't like she set out to be one. It just kind of was the path of least resistance at one point in her life. She may not like to hear that, but it was kind of like...
We've had that conversation, and she told me herself, because that was kind of my thing too.
Yeah.
I think when you're exposed to it, you automatically feel that connection if it's for you, because not everybody could teach special ed. Yeah. I'll tell you that for sure. And I was going to teach general ed, and so I knew that the whole inclusion thing was coming, where they wanted to push more into general ed, and so I chose every single elective a special ed topic. And so the more I learned about it, the more it intrigued me. And so when I did my field work, I went to go do it at the post-high school setting for ALE students. And once
Was that
I
like
was there,
the Reddick Center, or is it? Okay.
at the Reddicks,
So you were there as well?
only for a semester for student teaching.
Okay. And tell people what the Reddick Center is.
So the Reddick Center is a post-high school program for kids who have been in ALE all through elementary, middle school, and high school. If there's an educational need, they try to connect you to what like your adult life will look like. And so most kids, when they age out of high school, you know, they end up going to college, the military, they start working, whatever their choice is. But for kids that have those intellectual disabilities, their path is a little bit harder to find for them and their families. And so the Reddicks, what they do is they try to get them ready for what their adult life will look like. And so like for my daughter, for instance, she can't really communicate. A lot of her communication is memorized script. She's not able to stay on a task for a long time. She still needs help.
What's memorized script?
Memorized script is like things that you keep hearing all the time, and so you memorize that phrase. And so I can't have a conversation with her, but if she's hungry, she'll tell me, are you hungry? Are you hungry? Because that's what she's heard from me. So she memorized that phrase.
Okay.
But to have a back and forth conversation, she's not able to do that. And so we know that she probably wouldn't be able to get a job. And so her path through Reddicks, they have a lot of different things, and they try to find like what makes them happy, like what do they want to do the rest of their adult life. And so for Stephanie, she was in the recreational and volunteer group, and so they would take her out to do volunteer things with supervision. They would take her to the parks, they would help her give back to the community, but they try to fill their life. So I think their motto or their saying is the last day of Reddicks should look like the first day of their adult life. And so they're able to go there from the time they leave high school until 22, they age out.
Okay.
And so typically kids, they go to kinder at like 5 or 6 years old. If you have been identified with a disability, you can start the day you turn 3. And then where other kids graduate at 18, there's that post-high school program to get you ready for your adult life until 22, if there's that educational need as well. And so I did my 1 semester of field work at Reddicks. And as soon as I started there, I thought, this is it.
Really?
Like, this is what I want to do. I loved it. I was assigned to one girl. I won't say her name just for privacy. But I fell in love with everything special ed, and I thought, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want to teach general ed.
It just clicked with you, huh?
And I think that's what the conversation with Nina, she said, once I did it, it was like, this is awesome. Like, this is where I belong. And she's a natural.
Yeah.
And I think it just came to her. And every time I would tell her, like, you are amazing, she would be like, I don't think I am. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, for you, it's natural. Like, you're always a step thinking, like, with the end in mind. Like, what do you want this kid to be able to accomplish when he leaves your classroom? And she really works towards that.
Yeah.
Her passion is definitely there. But yeah, I ended up graduating general ed, but I went to go take my certification for special ed, and that's all I ever taught. And, you know, I stayed the 15 years at Northside. I did special ed the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is Nina's told me before how Nina loves games. She really does. She loves to play board games. She loves trivia. She loves games. And not that a child's a game, but she's told me before how each kid is like a puzzle. She says, and I enjoy figuring out the puzzle. And when I can figure out what this kid needs and things that encourage this kid to do the work that he needs to do or she needs to do, when I figure that puzzle out, she's like, I'm excited. And she just craves that figuring out the puzzle. Another thing, to go back to the Reddick Center, when she worked there, they have like spring dances, you know, and I remember she would say, you need to come to the dance. And so I'm like, I'll go. You know, I don't like doing anything, you know me. So I would go to the dance, and I went to one, and after that I had to go to all of them. I told her, I said, this is literally like a high school dance, only there are 0 wallflowers. Everybody's dancing. everybody, you still had kids trying to make out in the corner. You still had little clicking up, here and there, but everybody's having a good time. So it was so funny because after I went to one, I was like, let me know when the next dance is because I'm going to go. And I was just enjoyed it. I thought it was a great place. And the fact that a lot of times there's so many programs for little ones, and even with the lady that I talked to yesterday, there's programs for little ones, but there's this weird, for lack of a better phrase, it's almost like when they're not cute anymore, we don't do anything for them. When they become legal age, it's like the options are fewer, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's what it is. I think society just assumes that everybody, the older they get, the more independent they become and self-sufficient, and unfortunately that's not the case for everyone. And so we see those limited resources, especially for our special needs community, because the older that they get, the more scarce the resources become, and they're not able to find like what they like. They have to fit in the boxes of what's available. And it's a sad thing because everybody likes what they like, and typically developing people are able, I don't like this job, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to change my major, or I'm going to, and they don't have those opportunities.
Yeah, those options aren't there. So let's back up a little bit. So you've decided, you studied general ed, you've decided, hey, I'm doing special needs. So what do you do next?
So I applied with Northside. I ended up teaching ALE the first 4 years. And then they asked me to move into the collaborative setting, which is in the general ed classroom. The kids that are able to be mainstreamed but need a little bit extra support. Maybe it's behavior, maybe it's academic. Even kids that just need accommodations. To be successful in the classroom, some kids would even need modifications. And so we want them to be exposed to everything that the general ed kids are doing. But if they just need that extra help, there would be a second teacher in there to work not only on what the whole class is working on, but kids in special ed, the committee will assign like individualized goals for them. Like, where do we want to close the gaps?
Is that the ARD?
The ARD is the actual meeting. It's either
gotcha.
an admission or review or dismissal. But in the ARD, the committee develops what's called an IEP plan, the Individualized Education Plan. And there we say like, okay, Gabe needs to work on this
Hygiene.
in math. He needs to work, you know what, in special ed, those
Sure.
are goals.
Yeah.
He needs to work on toileting. He needs to be independent on this. And so the second teacher is in there to not only help with what the whole class is doing, but then also try to close those gaps that have been identified. And so we collect data on those goals. And so I was really scared to move to the general ed world supporting special ed because I only knew the life skills. And, I knew communicating with pictures, and I knew building routines and structure and, autism. And so when I went to the general ed setting, it was like really eye-opening. And I think it helped me realize, like, I can do this to have more ALE kids come in here. I could do this, or I could modify this, or this is a good opportunity for them to come. And so I did that probably like for the next 4 years. And then I started becoming a special ed coordinator part-time. And so part-time I was in the classroom, part-time I was overseeing the special ed department and facilitating those ARD meetings. And then the last 6 years that I was there, I completely got out of the classroom, and so I would see the whole department. And so like at Evers, the department had 22 people in it.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that big.
And so I had the opportunity to go into every classroom. And so I would see, like, get ideas from this classroom and tell this teacher, what so-and-so does. And so it really helped the department grow. And then, our department is not only the teachers, the assistants, we have school psychologists, speech pathologists, the related services that they call like PT, OT, that they come into the campus. And so I got to see like the whole overview of what it is. And so that was really neat. But at the same time, my daughter was getting older. And so I thought, oh my gosh, she's at Reddix at that time.
Let's back up, because I do want to talk about your daughter. But I feel like Nina's talked to me a little bit about it. But if I'm being 100% honest with you, the first 15 seconds I hear, and then after that, I block her out.
Oh my gosh.
So,
what a husband.
so I would love to hear how you met her and how she became your daughter, because you were her teacher?
I was.
Okay.
It was during the first 4 years that I was teaching life skills. So she was in the life skills class that I was assigned to.
How old was she at the time?
She was 9 years old at the time. 8 or 9. She was 8.
Okay.
She was actually in 3rd grade when I met her. And so kids that are in ALE, a lot of them are not able to go into the general ed setting, and so sometimes they end up in that class from 1st through 5th grade.
And that's what Nina does,
so,
right?
So it's like a mix of abilities in the classroom.
Gotcha.
And so Stephanie was in my classroom. She was in the ALE class. She did have significant behaviors, both self-injurious and towards her peers. She has Fragile X, and so Fragile X is an umbrella that causes autism. It causes intellectual disabilities. It causes epilepsy, ADHD, mood disorder. So she kind of has like the whole gamut that falls under the Fragile X umbrella. And so she was probably one of my biggest challenges. She was almost completely nonverbal at the time. And so...
And at the time, was she also physical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very aggressive. And she would spit at us, which that's my one thing that I'm like, oh, the spitting. You can hit me, you can scratch me and pinch me, but the spitting, oh my gosh. And so every teacher, and it's very hard, and I see this in the special ed world a lot, you cannot take things personal. And one of the biggest things to understand is that behavior is a form of communication.
Yeah.
And a lot of people cannot understand that to fully comprehend. And I was like, what is going on with this girl? Like, why does she keep hitting us and, doing all these things? And so the more I learned about her, the more I started understanding the significant trauma that she had endured. She was in her second foster home. And so, there was still red flags going on. And eventually she got removed from the foster home. And she got put at the Davidson Respite House. And so Davidson Respite House, it's kind of like an orphanage for special needs.
Okay.
And so they specialize in that. And
that's in Bexar County?
It's in Bexar County. And so I started going to visit her there because I thought like, oh my gosh, her whole world just changed. Like her school changed, her home changed, her friends changed. And so I ended up going to visit her. And the more I would visit her, and she would get so excited because that was her second year with me. I met her when she was 8 in 3rd grade. And then in 4th grade, she was removed. And so she went to Davidson Respite House. And I would go visit her. And I kind of just started thinking in the back of my mind, like, what if I foster her? Like, what if I take her home and foster her until a good family comes and adopts her and her sister? So she has a sister.
She has a sibling.
She has a sibling that's 3 years younger who has the same disabilities that she does.
Okay.
The sister was actually a little bit higher functioning than she was, and she was in the early childhood class, so I didn't have her yet. She would have came up to my class. And so I would visit both of them, and I thought, well, I can't do both. I'm a single person, and even though I felt that I had the skill set, I don't think I had the energy and the patience for two, because it's a lot of work.
It is.
And so I started talking to Davidson Respite, and I was like, what do I have to do to foster her? And I would like to just give her a stable environment until somebody comes and adopts both of the girls together. And so that was like my plan at the time, and that's as far as I thought it was going to go. I was going to foster her for a little bit. That was my plan. And so
God had another plan.
A very, very big plan that now to this day, his plan is still working.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I thought was so small back then and so temporary has impacted like my entire life from
Your
that
family.
point. My family, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so she ended up coming home when she was 9 years old in 4th grade. And then months turned into
What is your
years.
family's thought right now when they see you and they go, you're a single woman. Yes, you're in the special needs industry, so to speak. I don't know the terminology. And they see you bringing on a girl that you've been teaching. Or were they kind of skeptical of it, or were they super supportive, or what was their idea behind it?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah. And I think it's fear of the unknown, which happens a lot in the special needs community. They were telling me at the time I was traveling, I had just gotten divorced, I was single, was going out with friends, and they were like, you don't want to do this. Like, you don't understand. Like, this is a lot of work. And they knew because I had been talking to them about what was happening at school and the behaviors that I was seeing and the spitting and the hitting and but I kept telling them, but I think if she gets in a stable environment, like that's going to change. It's going to change. Like she just needs stability. And so, I ended up bringing her home. Which that was a roller coaster in itself because the adoption agency would be like, okay, she's coming home on this day. So I would get all ready and the house would be, and then, oh, no, didn't go through. We got to wait. And
what
then
was the holdup?
The
holdup
was paperwork, but it was also because they were separating the siblings. And so that came with a lot. And then both her mom and dad have intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
And so they had advocates trying to fight for them as well to keep the family reunited. But, it wasn't in the best interest of the children because of the history and the trauma that had already happened at home, which is the reason they got removed.
Oh, gotcha.
And so there was a lot of going back and forth. And so eventually she came home. And so the months turned into years, and it was really hard because in the beginning I did do most of it by myself. I would go to work, full time. I would drop her off at her school because I lived in Northeast, but I worked in Northside, and I couldn't bring her to my class because it would be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And so I would have to take her, and then after school she would go to the ARC for their after school program, and then I would have to go pick her up after school. Well,
let me ask you this real quick. Let's pause for a second. And I got buddies, friends that have fostered kids and have now adopted kids. And we've talked a little bit about the transition for those kids going from extreme instability to a stable environment, and how I guess some of the hiccups that happen, because with the kids that I'm referring to, there was times where they just didn't expect to stay anywhere very long. They were used to being moved around, and for them to actually get comfortable in a place, it took time and effort. Mm-hmm. What was it like initially getting Steph to be comfortable in your home? Was it something that she kind of took to right away, or did she kind of give you some resistance on it?
She gave me resistance. I think it was in her being, like her just self-defense mechanism, that she was just very reactive to everything. It got to a point right before my second year that I had her at the home that I went to counseling, and I was really at a crossroad because I started thinking, what did I get myself into? Like, this is wearing me down, and it's affecting like my work performance. I would cry every day. She'd hit me all the time. The behavior was pretty bad.
And you had no help. It was just you.
Yeah, because my parents were still very standoffish. So were my sisters, because I think it's fear of the unknown, and all they would see is the way that she was. And I went to counseling, and I told the counselor, I think like I got in more than I can get. And the counselor was very good. She helped me understand, like, some people just need a team. And, you have to understand that you did everything you could for her, and she needs a team of people maybe. And it's okay for you to say, yeah, you're going to give her to the team again. And so I cried so much, and I just thought, like, I don't know what I was thinking to get her. Like, I thought I was going to be able to do it, and I'm not. And so that day I went home and I cried so much, and I told Stephanie, I'm not sure how much you understand of what I'm telling you, but
at this point she's 9, 10.
Yeah, she was 10 at the time, 10 or 11 actually. And I told her, if things don't start changing, like, I have to send you back to the Davidson house. And like, I love you, I want you here, but I can't do this by myself. And I want what's best for you. And I just prayed a whole lot. And slowly things started changing. My parents started helping me. At the time, I wasn't very close to my parents either. We had a falling out, growing up. And so there was kind of some tension still, resentment, with me at least. And so when they started helping me with Stephanie, it's like they started falling in love with her. And they started seeing like who she really is, and that she was a sweet person. And I think a lot of her behavior came from her just always being on the defense, Yeah. And so once he started to help me, things definitely started getting better. And then we just kind of kept going. And like I said, years turned into more years. And there was many, many years where we were going to court. She's from Pearsall. And so we would go to Pearsall to court like every 6 months because they were trying to reunify the family.
Yeah.
But there was other attorneys saying, no, that's not what's best for the kids. And so it took a really long time. And so when she came home, she would call me, what most of the kids in my class would call me, Miss Cano. So my last name is Lizcano, but they couldn't say Miss Lizcano, so they would all say Miss Cano. And so when she came home, she would call me Miss Cano. And the first time she started calling me Mom, I was like, oh my gosh.
Was that just something that naturally happened at one point?
Mm-hmm. And I thought, like, you know what? She's a part of me. She's a part of the family. So many years had passed. Court, the judge didn't want to separate the sisters, and then they told me.
Where's the other sister at this point?
She was at the Autism Treatment Center.
Okay.
And she regressed quite a bit.
Oh, gotcha.
And so then eventually they put her in a group home. We would visit her every so often. And then Stephanie would regress every time we would see her. And the psychiatrist was telling us
what causes that regression?
I think there were triggers for her. And so the psychiatrist explained that when she would see her, it would bring back a lot of the trauma that they went through together before they got removed. And so the psychiatrist is like, maybe it's better that she just starts moving on with her life and, doesn't see the sister.
Yeah.
And the little bit that Stephanie could speak, when we would go see the sister, as soon as we'd walk in, Stephanie would tell me, go home. She needs to go home. She needs to go home. And I'm like, I have to listen to her, and I have to respect that she didn't want that part of her life anymore. And then COVID happened, and so we didn't see, the sister for a very long time. And
well, I guess for like me and you, right? If we're siblings, we experience those same kinds of things that they did, and then we see each other. It's natural that you're gonna remember the experiences we had together. Mm-hmm. But where you and I might be able to sit down and have a conversation and talk about it and understand each other's perspective and what happened and can move past it. These girls can't do that.
Right.
Gotcha.
And so eventually I ended up adopting her when she was 16 years old.
Oh, wow. So
yeah, it took that long. So I adopted her when she was 16. And I think every parent gets some sort of anxiety, like when they're transitioning from elementary to middle to high school. 16, she's in high school, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen next? Okay, it's going to be Reddix, but what's going to happen after Reddix? That's what really scared me. And I thought, I can't leave her at home. What am I going to do? And that's when I kind of started thinking about, like, I'm going to have to start a program. And it was like a far thought in my head.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I still have 4 years. And, my plan was to do it Stephanie's last year of Reddix, so that I would have a place already established and running when she got out to transition to. But COVID happened.
Yeah.
And so that kind of killed all my plan. And I
thought...
So
at this point, where are people going after Reddix? Is there a program similar to yours, or do they just go home and the family watches over them, or is that...
Most of them will go home and sit at home. And I feel like that's a very lonely life, because they don't have a lot of options, and anywhere they would go, they would need supervision. And so
And I wouldn't imagine a lot of the people. I mean, for me, right? If I'm stuck at home, I'm not stimulating my mind, and I'm not, being physically active, and all those things are. We talked about regression a minute ago, but all those things would undo all the things that they've experienced and learned up to that point. I would imagine.
Some of them end up going to a group home. Either their parents get, at a higher age where they can't take care of them, or their parents have to work full time and there's nowhere else for them to go, so they go to a group home.
Is that similar, like maybe like a nursing home kind of thing?
Well, group homes usually have like 3 or 4 roommates that live together, and then they're manned or staffed 24 hours.
Gotcha.
But they do have to find somewhere to go for part of the day, which back at that time they were called day habs. When I first took over my place, it was called a day hab. And so they would go there to socialize, to kind of get skills. The state did away with day habs, and so now they're called ISS centers, Individualized Skills and Socialization centers. And so that's what I run now. And so Stephanie is able to go there. Day hab's easier to say. Very much easier to say. So we're just like, we go to ISS, and a lot of people are like, in school suspension.
Yes, that's what I think when I hear it.
About. But no, it's called Individualized Skills and Socialization Centers.
So let's back up a little bit. You have it in your mind that you need to have this transition for Steph. You want to open a facility. You're single mom with help from your folks. You're running the department basically at Evers Elementary. You've got a lot of irons in the fire. You're like everybody else. You got to pay bills. You got to put food on the table. You got to maintain a vehicle and a house and all that good stuff. When Nina told me she's leaving Evers and she's going to open up she told me you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And she said she's actually doing it. And I was thinking, Letty's wild.
I've been told that before.
When did you actually say, hey, I'm committing to this and I'm putting in my notice? And what had you already lined out where you were going, the facility? Had you already had the plan to buy the place? Had you already gotten the funding? All that stuff. How was that all playing out? Because at the same time, you've got 101 responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And now all that's going to get jumbled up. And I would imagine buying a place like that, starting a business, and even though you have experience in the field, you're not a businesswoman.
Exactly.
So how did all that transition for you?
It was definitely a leap of faith. I was very scared because my plan, like I said, was to do it Stephanie's last year at Red X. And I did not have the money. I did not have the resources. And I thought, I'm going to take all the equity out of my house and I'm going to go big and go home, right? And,
you told your folks either this is going to be a success or I'm moving in with you.
But COVID happened and the state shut down all of the day habs at that time. And that scared me a whole lot because I thought if I would have done it, I would have lost everything. Like I would have lost everything. And so as the years went on, I kind of started moving that thought to the back of my mind. Like it's not going to happen, And it's funny, one of the speech pathologists I was talking to towards the end of the year, she's like, hey, whatever happened to you opening your center, And I told her, you know what? I think it's just a far thought now. I think that boat has sailed, like it's not going to happen anymore. And so that was in June, June of 22. The school year was finishing. I was packing up. I was in my office, and I went to the day center where my daughter was, and I went to go talk to the owner. And I just told her, hey, you know what? I've been thinking about opening a place
So
like
Stephanie
this.
was already going to this one, or she was going to another one?
She had been there for 2 months.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And so I went to go talk to the owner, and I told her, my dream, was opening up a place like this of my own. And but I don't know, like, where to start. Like, I don't know what to do. And so I kind of told her, you know what? What if I come volunteer for you for free? And, I have a lot of things I could contribute. And in exchange, you kind of show me like what I need to run one of these places. And so she kind of started talking to me, and then she called me the next day again, and she was asking me a whole lot of questions, like what would I do? Do I want to franchise and, get really big? Do I want to keep this? What is kind of like my vision? And after we finished talking, she tells me, I'm thinking about retiring, and I think you'd be the perfect person to take over this space. And I was like, excuse me? What are you talking about? And so I told her, oh my gosh, like the opportunity fell on my lap. And I told her I just signed my contract with Northside, so I would want a year to prepare, and next June I could take over. And she said, no, I need to retire in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, 2 months? Like, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
But I told her, let me see what I need to do. Like you said, the special ed world, I got that. The business world, I have no clue. So I called the UTSA, Small Business Administration. And, a lot of people don't know this, but our taxes pay for that.
Really?
And so, yeah, when you pay Bexar County taxes, the college taxes, all of that funding goes, not all of it, but a portion of that goes to the Small Business Administration that's run at UTSA. And so our tax money already paid. Anybody could go to that facility and tell them, hey, here's my business plan. I need somebody to help me go through it and make sure my budgets are right. Because I was missing a whole lot of, especially the taxes area, where they were like, where are your this taxes? Where are your that? And I was like, oh, let me add that. So my budget was like way bigger than I thought it was going to be. But they assign somebody to you to walk you through the whole process, even help you find funding.
Really?
Yes. Not funding you have to pay back, but they help you with resources, and they connected me to an attorney. And so she kind of helped me lay out like all my LLC and do like my handbook and do like all the legalities of it. And so it was kind of like an easy process, but still very stressful, because I thought I have to come up with the money in 2 months. And so I had to give a very large down payment to take over the business, and then finance, the rest. And then
it's got to be overwhelming too, because you're everything's going so fast, and you don't have a background in business, like I said, but yet people are talking to you about business items. And so not only are you trying to make this happen really quickly, you're trying to learn the terminology, you're trying to learn, the ins and out of it, and it's just like a crash course.
It was overwhelming. And then at the same time, like trying to my foot was halfway out the door with Northside, but I didn't know, like, I have to wait for the funding to go through to make sure this is going to happen before I give my notice over here. And so it was literally a day by day thing. And finally, everything went through. And so I gave my notice at Northside, and I thought, I'm losing my insurance. I'm losing my retirement. I'm taking a huge pay cut. It was scary. It was very scary, but I've learned over the years, and I truly, truly believe that everything's in God's timing. I think when in my head I was going to open it, 2.5 years ago, it wasn't my time. Like, I wasn't ready mentally. I wasn't ready financially. I don't think I was in that mindset yet.
Well, and it probably would have died on the vine
definitely
after COVID hit.
Definitely.
To owe that money and not be able to have clients because COVID, I mean, that would have ruined you.
It would have.
Yeah.
It would have completely. And, again, it's like God keeps showing me, like, time after time after time, like, Leti, wait.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do it when the time's right. And I'm kind of school of hard knocks,
Sure.
I've been through it. I've been through a lot growing up. And it's like when I want to do it. And I have to sit back and think like, okay, God's got this. And he's shown me throughout my life how he's had my back. When I went through the storms, and I love that little poem of the footprints, you know which one it is? And I would be so angry with God sometimes because some of the things that I went through that were traumatic for me growing up. And I would think like, where was God? Like, where was God, during all this time? And when I first read that Footprints poem, I thought, oh my gosh, like he was carrying me.
Yeah.
And it could have been so much worse. And so when this happened, I thought, I'm trusting God. Like, and it's the first time in my life where I thought like, I'm going to put it in God's hands. And if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. A lot of doors were closing, just, for different reasons and things that were going on at the place before I got there. It was hard for me to get funding. And so every door that would close, I wasn't sad about it. I thought, okay, well, it's not going to happen again. It's not the time. And the door would open. I mean, God kicked all those doors open and everything that would become an obstacle within that day or the next day, it would go through. And I thought, this is it. It's my time. I left Northside, which was a big part of my life, a big,
Sure.
my family. It's my Northside family, and I love them. To start working at the day hab at the time, but it's been a dream come true, and I love going to work every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm constantly smiling. I'm laughing there. It's a different kind of stress in a way because, like you said, learning the business side and then like all of the compliance and the state regulations and, licensing. And it's been a learning curve for me. And one of the things that I would do in the school district is network. I love networking because I don't want to stop learning.
Yeah.
And I felt like I knew everything like the back of my hand in the school district. And now I'm coming to a world where I don't know a lot. And so I reached out to other day habs and I'm like, hey, do y'all want to work together with me? Do y'all want? And everybody was like, nope. And I thought, what? Like
other day habs are just,
yeah,
okay.
but I think they see it as competition.
Yeah.
Where I feel like, no, there's not enough resources for special needs. Like
Oh,
we need to work
absolutely.
together and become better and stronger and work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
But I've had a very, very hard time finding a mentor. And to this day, time has flown by. This is my 10th month.
Really?
Yeah. In August 15th, it's going to be 1 year that I've been at the backyard.
That's awesome. How many clients do you have there?
Right now I have 40.
40. Mm-hmm. What's funny is I told Nina, so Cinco de Mayo, I went and made lunch over there. And I told Nina, like, I'm very strange. I probably have a few issues of my own, but I was kind of like, I need to show up and I need to be energetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to go and be a prude, and that's not my personality anyway, right?
Right.
When I'm at home, I'm lazy and boring and nobody wants to talk to me. But like when I'm in that kind of atmosphere, I want to have some energy, right? I want to have a good time. And I told Nina, I forgot how long I was there, maybe 4 or 5 hours, I don't know. And I told Nina, I said, when I left, I was exhausted, and I tried to interact well, as stuff was cooking, I'd go, it was cooler out in the little bullpen area where everybody's doing crafts. So I'd go in and let me see what you're doing. Oh, I like those colors, just talking and socializing. And then I think it was Robert, a taller kid, right? Mm-hmm. Real helpful. And then there was another gentleman, shorter, older gentleman. Those two were always in the kitchen, always talking, wanting to help. And so I give them things to do and get them to help me. But I told Nina, I said, you know what? I said, the staff there and Letty, I said, they have an energy level that I don't understand. Because when I left, I sat in the truck. I think I turned around so we could take a picture. I went back. But I got in, I was sweating. I was, I checked my heart rate. I was like, oh, man. And I had a great time. But like the energy level to be able to interact. And that was me interacting. Half of y'all were gone because I think y'all were at a field trip or something.
Yes.
And so I told Nina, I said, it wasn't even everybody. At the end, it was everybody. But the energy level, you guys, I don't know where you get it from, but holy cow.
Part of it, I think they give it to us.
Really?
I mean, you have to be energetic. When I'm recruiting employees, I'm like, look, number one thing, energy. Second, compassion, your nurturing, your understanding of disabilities. I'm like, you have to be, like, there's no downtime. There is no downtime. and it's just fun.
And they're also so social.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They all want to talk to you. They all want to have some of your time, and so you want to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so your energy levels gotta be high.
And that's one of the things that I hear a lot from the families, and not everybody has families that attends there, but I hear, when they first got here, they were so quiet and to themselves, and now they're a chatterbox, and, they love coming here. And I think it's just giving them a place to belong. Everybody wants to belong to something.
Sure.
And, I feel like, if they sit at home and they're doing nothing and they're not being exposed, like not only the regression, but then depression, can also sit in, because it's human nature to want to belong and be wanted and be loved. And so I strive to have a place where people can go and make friends, they can socialize, but, grow emotionally and socially, and just become more independent, in a fun, safe place.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. I want to see them happy. I want to see them successful and have a place to go to and belong.
I enjoy seeing your posts when y'all go on field trips and go and do things. And it's funny because I'll see it and I'm like, man, I want to go there.
Hey, we take volunteers. We take volunteers. So we do have outings every single day.
Okay.
And so part of the program is having them out in the community, because it's not realistic for them to be in four walls. I mean, our building's pretty big, but to be there every day, 40 hours. And, us, we can get in the car and we can go to Walmart when we want to. And a lot of these members, they live in group homes, they're wards of the state. And so they don't have family to take them out. When they're in group homes, usually it's one staff and there's four of them. So if they're high needs, it's hard for one staff to take them out into the community. And so that's one of the things that I like to do, is give them the opportunities to explore things, to learn things, to just be exposed to, like, what does San Antonio have to offer? There's so much out there, for us to do.
The stuff you've been posting lately it's everything. I told Nina, I was like, one day you were like at a fire station, another day you were at like a farm. I was like, Letty's all over the place.
We are, and I want to kind of put it in their court, and so some of them might not know what's out there. So I'll do a lot of research and definitely find out prices, because we are on a very tight budget there. And so I try to find things that are under a certain price point, and I tell them about it, but they have the opportunity. We have large meetings, and we talk about what's working there, what's not, what do we want to change. I want them to have an input, because I tell them, this is y'all's place. Like, we facilitate it, but this belongs to y'all.
And these are adults. What is the age range?
They're adults. So the license is 18 and up.
Okay.
My youngest is 19 and my oldest is 68.
Okay.
And so what we do as part of our meetings is we talk about, what do you guys want to see on the calendar next month? And so that's how we end up with, like, the flea market. We end up with places that I'm like, all right, guys, if that's where y'all want to go, we're going to take y'all. Like, we want y'all to be happy. We want to know what your interests are, and we want to help you be yourself. And so some interesting things get on the calendar. And then, we have some stuff that, I'll suggest, and sometimes I'll bring up things and they're like, no. Like, we're not doing that. And I respect that. If I'm not going to force anybody, just like our daily schedule. They have flex time where they could do whatever they want. We do some functional academics. We do arts and crafts. We do music and movement. We do the outings every day. We help them with their lunch if they need help. But we want to give them that independence and just kind of give them, like, their place, and just help, like I said, facilitate it.
Yeah.
And so, when they come up with the things that they want to do, we're like, all right, we're putting it on the calendar next month. And sometimes they say some things like, we want to go on a helicopter, because they don't know the concept of money sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't think that one's going to go on the calendar. But we have a lot of fun. One of the things we did was a GoFundMe. And we were able to raise $7,000 to put a down payment for a 15-passenger van.
Oh, awesome. So how are you getting around right now?
With the van.
Okay.
And so we're putting that van our phrase for the GoFundMe was the backyard's going places, and we definitely are going places. We have them out and about, and they're like, oh, we're so tired. But I just try to find things that I know, because I think some of them get an allowance of like $5 a week or $10 a week, and so I try to find a lot of free things too that they're able to do. And then for those that I know like they don't get anything, well, we kind of end up sponsoring them.
Yeah.
And then I have at least 3 families that they're so generous and they've blessed us so much, that they'll sometimes give me, here's an extra $30, here's an extra $40. And I use that to fund the ones that don't have anything, so that they're also able to go and experience those things with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome to have people that'll reach out like that and be able to, I guess, donate. One thing that I always thought was super interesting was going to the graduations for the Reddick Center. And it was so interesting because I sit in the back of church. I sit in the back of everything. But it was so interesting because I told Nina, I said, you see a family that you can tell doesn't have much. And then you can see another family that you can tell is doing extremely well. By the way, they dress, maybe the car they showed up in. I said the connective tissue is that special needs doesn't care. It affects everybody. It doesn't matter your race, your class, your financial standing. None of that makes a difference. It affects everybody. So, to have people, like Nina would tell me, there were people who would help fund, I guess, the overnight stays for the Reddick Center and things like that. And I think a lot of times we forget how important it is to research places like what you have, or research places where you can donate that still give these people, as they get older, an opportunity to experience things and to have a decent life. Nobody wants to sit in the house all day long.
Right.
I mean, maybe outside of me, but nobody else wants to sit in the house all day long, and to be stimulated mentally, and to be able to go socialize with friends. If I saw the same 3 people every day, I'd be miserable. You know what I'm saying? To be able to go and hang out with 40 people, to have 40, you instantly have 40 friends.
Yep.
That's huge for maintaining a quality lifestyle.
Exactly.
Well, one thing that was super funny when I was there a while back, I told Nina, and Nina's like, "You're stupid." Shorter Mexicano guy, I forget his name, but he kept looking at my beard, and he's like,
I know.
He's like, "Beard?" And I'm like, yeah, it's a beard. And
He
he's like,
calls it a moo-moo.
well, what's funny is, yes. And so he goes, I pet it. And I said, yeah, if you want to pet it, go ahead and pet it. And so he's petting my beard, and he goes, moo, moo. And I told Nina, I said, I felt a little disrespected. And she goes, you let him pet your beard? And I was like, yeah, he asked me to. She's like, that was stupid. I was like, I don't know. I was trying to have a good time too. So let me ask you something. And this is kind of off a little bit. But for people that don't interact with special needs people, what is, like, through Nina, I kind of get an idea of what different types of special needs there are. Right, you have autistic people, and I guess there's all kinds of levels to that. Then you have intellectually disabled kids, and then there's probably a whole bunch I don't know. But what are the behaviors that stand out the most that people are going to probably interact with in public? And what is some advice you can give people who don't interact with special needs people, but might run into them at the grocery store? Something to just understand what's happening. Nina's told me before, when she was at the Reddick Center, she's like, hey, this is a 20-year-old kid, but cognitively he's 5, And it was interesting because once I kind of understood that, I was like, oh, because when I see an adult, even if they're special needs, back then,
They're an adult, right?
They're an adult, And so I would try and interact as if they were an adult. When in actuality, cognitively, maybe they're 5, right? Mm-hmm. And once I kind of understood that, it was so much easier. I felt more comfortable. I interacted better. What is some advice you can give people that probably they're going to see behaviors wise out in public, whether it's we've been places, Walmart or something, where a kid's screaming, mm-hmm. And it's like maybe the noises in the place. I guess autism, there's an issue with noise,
like overstimulation.
Overstimulation, and then you see the reaction, and you see all these people looking like, oh my God.
And they think it's like a tantrum.
Yes.
There's a huge difference between a tantrum and a meltdown.
Yes.
And, we say that people with autism have meltdowns because their sensory regulation is like out of whack. And so they're
and when you say sensory, is it all audible or like visually?
It could be anything. It could be feel, it could be touch, it could be smell. We have some kids that don't go in the cafeteria. It could be, maybe there's too much lighting, there's too much noise, or too many things going on at one time. And so I think we just have to be sensitive to that. And a big part of it is educating them. And I'm very quick to, when I see somebody staring at Stephanie at the stores, I'll tell them like, hey, she has autism, and
do you do it nicely, or do you do West Side?
No, I try to be nice. I've had to get West Side sometimes, but for the most part, I do it very nicely. Or else I'll probably think that she gets it from me, but I'm like, no, that's something else. But I'll try to educate them, and then sometimes they're just like, yeah, and one time I was at Target, and these two, they were like teenagers, they were playing. And some people are like, you're too sensitive. And I'm like, no, I think it goes back to educating. They were talking to each other. And then she turned around and she told her, you're just retarded. And I was like, what did she just say? And so I brought Stephanie over there, and I told her, you know what? And I'm like, well, now we say it's an intellectual disability. And I'm like, and if you want to meet somebody with one, this is my daughter. Her name's Stephanie. And she didn't choose to be born like this. And her life's it's been hard for her. And I'm like, and it's not easy, and she doesn't get to experience all the things people do. So, just be a little bit more sensitive about how you're using that word. And she was like, I am so sorry. And, I hope that she never used it again. But I think it's just part of educating people, and the spectrum, like you said, autism, it's a huge spectrum. So, you can have autism and be extremely smart. They have a wonderful memory. They have a lot of talents. They're very good with science. They're very good with math. Some of them may lack the social skills. It's very hard for them to learn. But everyone in my place, to qualify to go to an ISS center, you have an intellectual disability. So everybody will have an intellectual disability. Aside from that, they may have autism, they may have Down syndrome, they may have mental illnesses too. I do have some people with schizophrenia, I have people with bipolar disorder. And so there's a big range of disabilities there. But, I think a lot of, I would say 99% of the volunteers that go there, they always come back. And at the first time, they're just kind of observing everything. And then they get to see, like, they're people. Yeah. Like, they have some challenges,
It's silly to think that, right? But yes, it's like, oh, they're just like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all dancing at the Riddick Center. Mm-hmm. There's no wallflowers. It's the same kind of thing.
And I want to give a big shout out to Texas Solar. They had been so amazing. So Wade, the CEO of Texas Solar, I met him at the Down Syndrome Walk. And he kind of asked me, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, we're promoting the backyard, and, we're kind of telling people about it, because there's still a lot of people that don't know there's programs out there, or they don't have the funding to pay for programs. That's a big challenge in the special needs community for adults. And so he was like, oh, well, where are y'all going? And I told him that we were going to Morgan's Wonderland at the time. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to sponsor your field trip. And I thought, what? Like, I just met this person. And he sure did. We went to Morgan's Wonderland, and he sponsored our lunch. He bought all of us Chick-fil-A.
Oh, wow.
And then for many, many, many months, he would send us a volunteer from his workforce. Every week.
Really?
Somebody from his work went for so many months. I want to say it was at least 5 months.
Wow. And
they just blessed us tremendously. And everybody who went would there was not one person that went that told me, oh yeah, I know what this place is. They were like, we don't even know where we're coming. And when I would tell them what it was, they were like, this is so neat, like that y'all have this place for them. And so I think a lot of them got exposed. So, I mean, he not only helped us, financially, but he helped us with manpower. He helped the exposure to teach the people, how do you work and how do you volunteer? And, you can befriend them. Like, it's okay, because I think it goes back to the unknown, like them being like, well, I don't know if they're going to explode on me if I talk to them, and because some can. So I thought that was really, really neat of Wade with Texas Solar to do that. And I've had people help me along the way. When I first started, there was times when I thought, I don't even know how I'm going to buy toilet paper next month. Like, wow. It was very, very hard, the financial part. And I would have people show up with cases of toilet paper, cases of paper towels, just different things that we would need. And I thought, this is all God. It's all God. And I think, a long, long time ago, back when I was in college, and I was probably doing things I shouldn't be doing, now that I look back. But I started thinking, during that time, there were babies that were being born with disabilities. And so when you fast forward 7, 8, 9 years after I graduated, the school he put me in was 2 blocks from the area where I always used to hang around.
Oh, really?
And I thought, if that's not redemption, what is? I think God put me at Westwood Terrace, which is off Marbach, where I would hang out, in that school. And it's like he told me, okay, you're done with that part of your life. Here's another chance, do good by these kids, and I fell in love with it. And I just thought, statistically, I should not be where I am. I've made very poor choices. I've been through a lot. And I feel like God's timing kept putting me in the right place at the right time to keep moving in the direction that I've moved and to be where I am today. It's all God's grace. There's no doubt about that. So a lot of people tell me, they see the things that Stephanie does and how much she's grown, and they tell me, God, she's so blessed to have you. And I'm thinking, no, that was also God too. He knew exactly what he was doing when he paired us together. I needed her as much as she needed me. And I didn't know that at the time. And now I look back and I'm thinking, God brought us together. And she was supposed to be a Lizcano, you know, and I didn't know that at the time. What I thought was foster for a few months turned out to be a career change, a life change, everything. And what I'm doing now to this day, it's because of Stephanie being in my life. So she's been an absolute huge blessing to me in so many ways.
How old is Steph now?
She's 24.
24?
Mm-hmm. She turned 24 last month.
And I think that I don't even know how long we've known her. How long have we known her? How old was she maybe when we met her?
7 years ago.
7 years ago?
I met you guys 7 years ago, yeah.
And I told Nina, because I think she was in one of your posts, and I was like, Steph has grown so much. I remember her being with the balloons, and
she still is. She still is. That's her jam.
And I remember it was so funny because it was one of the first times I met her, and I think Nina asked her for a balloon, and she says she's done. She's done.
She's done. That's her way of saying, no, ma'am, you're not getting that.
That was so awesome.
So kids with autism, they're very attracted to one thing sometimes. And it could be the oddest thing for us. There's been kids that like washing machines. There's been kids that like belts. For Stephanie, she loves balloons. And so when I had her in my class when she was 9 years old, if I wanted her to behave, I would tell her, first you work, then you'll get a balloon. And that was her incentive. That would work. The way Nina talked about the puzzle pieces, everybody wants an incentive. When I would tell the teachers, let them earn something. And they would be like, oh, no, you're bribing them. And I'm like, no, that's not bribing. That's them having an incentive.
Yeah.
You come to work every day because you get a check. do something the principal wants you to do because you want to earn a gene day. Adults do it too for different things, but they don't see it. And so when I would tell Stephanie, okay, you need to get up, Mom will give you a balloon, because she'd like throw herself on the floor. Whoop, she would get right up. And to this day, that's her thing. I'm like, she could be asking me for iPads and cell phones, but no, every Friday, if she has a great week, we go to the Dollar Tree. And that's her store. And she buys a pack of balloons. Now, she never blows them up. She rubs them together, and that's her way of stemming.
Okay.
That keeps her very calm. And so she's attracted to the weirdest things. So one is balloons. The other things she likes are insects, specifically ants, bees, and roaches.
Really?
Yes. And
so do you find that throughout the house?
I try not to. I try to keep them out of the house.
Well, bees can be dangerous too. So, I mean, you don't want her to get. Has she gotten stung? I'd imagine she has to have gotten stung.
She has not. And
really?
She has came in the house many times with a bee in her hand. And I think they just know her because they go to her. We could be out on the lake on a boat and she'll have a bee on her. And I'm thinking, what in the world? And then she's like, bee. And I'm like, don't touch the bees. But they've never stung her.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, you know what? I love seeing where you've gone with this because I have an issue with commitment. And you have made an incredible commitment, to Steph, for one, but then to your members. It is not a job, really. It's not a job where you can say, I don't feel like doing it today. It's not a job where you can go, you know what, I'm going to take a week off and garden and, take PTO, because a lot of those folks need the structure, right? They need the consistency. They need to have that because it helps them, I guess, with their comfort levels. And so you've committed to that 100%.
Absolutely.
And I think it's beautiful. I think I'm a lesser person because I have issue with just commitment in general. So I love seeing it. What are some of the things if people decide they want to volunteer or if people want to donate? What are some of the things that you guys always typically need? I mean, you talked about toilet paper earlier, but is there something that you guys go through like crazy? Is there like an adult diapers that are required, or is there not anybody that you have that need those kinds of things?
Oh, we do. We do take people that need assistance with toileting and some that are in diapers, and we change them. But most of them will come because Medicaid funds that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, some of them don't have the Medicaid programming. But I want to take a step back right now. And what you said about commitment, it's absolutely true. A place like this needs so much commitment, but I know that I cannot do it by myself, and I have been blessed with an amazing team of workers. I have 5 staff members that work, and I work the floor every day from open to close, that I could not do what I'm doing without them.
Yeah.
I had a scare not too long ago, and I ended up in the hospital for 6 days, and I thought, what is going to happen? And I told them, cancel the outings that week so that all the staff could stay together and y'all could, pull together and work. And, Pearl, my right-hand person, she's like, nope, we're not going to cancel anything. We're going to keep everything on the schedule. The members are going to keep their routines. And I thought like, oh my gosh, is she serious? And they did. They ran that place. I feel sometimes I don't give them enough credit. And it's not that I don't want to give them credit. I don't want to overwork them and burn them out because I know the high, energy that it takes. But, they didn't skip a beat. And I think that without them, because sometimes when it does start getting a little overwhelming, there's 5 of us that we can tag team. We could be like, hey, I've tried to get her off the floor. I've tried, calming her down. It's not working. You try, like, let's swap. And sometimes, like, that's all it takes. Yeah. And so, without that team, I think it makes the commitment part easier, for me to have the team that I have. Like, I could not do what I'm doing without them.
The ladies that were there when I was there, you could tell they were working. Mm-hmm. Like I said, there's a lot involved. There was maybe, I don't know, you probably had the majority of the folks with you. but there was still a handful of people there working, and they're interacting. And I told Nina, I said, that's a very involved job. You know, there's no hour lunch break. You know, there's no, hey, let me go outside and smoke or use a cell phone. You're continuously engaged, and that's what they need. You know, that's what those folks need. And I think you have a really good team because they're capable of doing that. And then to be able to do it without you there, you know, it's gotta be a good feeling to know that you're the tip of the spear, right? But you still have those folks that have made the same commitment that you have, you know, and the fact that you're able to be out 6 days and for them not to miss a beat is proof of that, one, but also just how much they enjoy the clients and how important the clients are to them as well. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So as far as what we need, yeah, we go through paper stuff quite a bit. School supplies. I like to do, instead of just crafts projects, so a lot of like STEM type projects where they could build, hands-on, create, like explore, for them to use their mind to solve things. And those are kind of hard to find, and then also expensive. I think our biggest challenge is exposing everybody because of lack of funding.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to apply for grants. I've been looking for grants, but part of what prevents me from applying for grants is that I'm not a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I've thought about doing it. But, you know, I have to get a board. I have to get together. I feel like I'm a nonprofit because I'm not making money yet.
Sure.
And that's hard, you know, to keep running the facility with the funding, because we're pretty much funded by Medicaid. Medicaid waivers, it's called Community Home and Community Services, HCS. But the wait list for people to get Medicaid waivers for HCS is a minimum of 14 years right now.
Wow.
And so a lot of parents don't know that they have to sign up by the time the kids are 4. And that's one of the things that we are trying to get the schools to push, is that you get them signed up for those wait lists, because when they're 18 and they're off their parents' insurance, or their child Medicaid stops, their adult Medicaid has to start, but you had to have signed up for it 14 years ago.
Explain that a little bit more I would like to have you get into that a little bit more in depth. Nina's told me before how even when they're younger, there's programs for young kids, but at the same time, they almost have to start filing out paperwork at birth because it takes so many years for the funding or for these programs to kick in for an individual. Explain that to folks, how important it is to jump out of that early and how long that stuff takes, because I would imagine there's so many families that don't find out about it till late. And it's like, well, by the time you get through this waiting process, they're not going to be eligible for it anymore.
Well, when kids are born, sometimes the disability is identified like as soon as they're born. Maybe they're able to already tell they're born with Down syndrome. Autism, it's kind of hard to catch until usually you start seeing most of the signs when they're about 2 years old. They start regressing. There's no eye contact. They're not, vocalizing anything. They're stemming, repetitive movements, those kinds of things. And so when you start taking them to the wellness checks, the doctor should be able to identify them and connect them to programs like Easter Seals. And so Easter Seals will provide like therapies and try to get them connected with resources, because the earlier the intervention, the more likely they are to make progress. Then Easter Seals will transition them when they're going to turn 3 to go into the public school system, because the day they turn 3, they're eligible for schooling, because we want to try to get them ready for a regular kinder class. At the end of their early childhood program, they decide, are they going to go to the ALE track? Are they going to go to the general ed track? And so that's kind of like where we start making decisions that impact them the rest of their life. But as a coordinator, one of the things I would do is tell the parents, when the kids were identified with a disability, like, hey, there's a local authority here. It's called the Alamo Local Authority. And they kind of manage funds that are streamed down, from Medicaid. But those fundings, they're called waivers. their wait list is about 14 years.
Wow.
I think it's hard for a parent, and one, it's overwhelming because you're hearing for the first time your child has a disability. And then second, you go through the whole grieving process because you're not having a child who you thought was, oh, they're going to go to college, they're going to play football. And so when they're going through all the stages of the grieving process, one of them is denial. And so when we tell them, oh, they're like, my kid's not going to need that in 14 years. And so they won't get on the wait lists. And I always tell them, like, you know what? It's a safety net. It's better for you not to need it in 14 years than for you to need it and not have it. And so even then, some parents would not sign up for it. And so the older they get, you know, the years are going by without them being on those wait lists. And the day they turn 18, those programs qualify for respite. So, for example,
what's respite?
It's like having a break. So those programs pay people to, like, for right now, my mom is watching Stephanie so that I could come do the podcast.
Yeah.
And they're actually paying my mom so that I can have a break.
Gotcha.
They pay my mom to go to the house when I'm at work to help bathe her, to dress her, to help her with the restroom, to feed her, because she still needs all that. Kind of like what you were saying, she's 24, cognitively she's about 3 or 4. And so she always needs that supervision. And so they pay people to assist because the whole goal of the waiver programs is to try to keep families together so that they don't end up in institutions.
Gotcha.
Because families will get overwhelmed. They'll run out of resources. You know, parents pass away. And those programs, the HCS waiver, they also pay for group homes. They pay for long-term dental because Medicaid stops at 18 for dental. And so they'll pay for dental. They'll pay for home modifications. If you need a tub turned into a slide-in shower for a wheelchair, you know, they'll pay for all of those programs, but the wait is 14 years.
Wow.
And so when you pay, they also pay for ISS centers. So if you have that funding, you can go and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket for them to attend programs like mine. But we have families that were never put on the program, and so now they're hearing about it, and they're like waiting 18 years or, you know, 14 years, depending on what program it is.
Oh, man.
So that's very, very hard. And it's hard for people to pay out of pocket. You know, once you're older, you want to retire, and now you're having to pay like a tuition again, like, you know, like you did when they were in daycare.
Yeah.
So that's been really hard too.
So, you know, it's interesting because Nina's told me before how she's had some students and there was one, I guess, at the Reddicks and maybe one or two, maybe at Evers, but where the parents just are in denial of it. Sometimes she said, you know, sometimes the parents have some disabilities, some special needs there too. And so it's just, like you said, if your kid's being diagnosed or there's that potential, you know, whether you're going to need it in 14 years or not, apply for it, you know, because if you do need it, you're really going to need it. You know, that everything's so expensive, everything's so costly, you know, to be able to get any sort of aid financially and any of that stuff, it's only going to help the family. I mean, geez.
Yep.
Those wait lists sound so crazy.
Yeah, and that's the whole state of Texas. So if you're hearing this and you have a child with a disability, you need to call the Alamo Local Authority and get on those. They're called Medicaid waiver wait lists. They need to get on that so that they're able to have all the programmings that they need later on.
Awesome. Letty, where can people find you? What's your website? What's your social media?
Facebook has the best things because I always keep up with Facebook.
Yes, and great pictures too.
Thank you. My website is thebackyardsa.com.
Okay.
And I don't keep up with that so much. But it has good information, and it has kind of like my background, my story, why I opened it. And it does have some pictures, but nothing like Facebook. And on Facebook, we're just the backyard.
Okay. The backyard? Okay. Awesome. Well, Letty, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure being here.
And I really do think you're doing a wonderful job. And it's funny because when you said that how Stephanie changed your life as much as you changed hers, that's really true. You know, these folks, Nina said it before. She's like, you know, people say I'm really good at my job, but I'm just treating them the way I would treat anybody else. You know, and to be able to interact and have a good time or even volunteer. I'm loud, obnoxious, and over the top. I had a great time at your place because I got to be loud, obnoxious, and over the top, you know? And so, I mean, anytime, whether it's your place or another place, volunteer.
Absolutely.
Donate, get to know these people, get to know the kids, you're going to realize they're a lot of fun.
They are.
But thank you, Letty.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.